Do we have somebody here that? Okay, excuse me. Do we have somebody that represents DCH? I had a question. Nope. That's all right. I can survive without it. Huh? No, DCH. It's okay. I can survive without it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, these are going to be hearings only, and we are not taking up the one on dietitians. They brought a substitute at the last minute, and it was too late for us to look at it and to get it reproduced. So if you're here on the one of the dietitians, we won't be taking that one up. Okay, to the committee, 7 members, we are going to have to find another time to meet. I will try to help my members by trying to find a place on Thursday so that their bill will have a better chance to be heard if it gets out of our committee in rules before crossover. So stay attuned, will you please, and see if we can do anything on Thursday. If not, I'll try to find a place on Monday to hear those 2 bills. And I want to start off by telling you, we do have a field trip, but they do need reservations. It is on where's Kim? March 3rd? Okay. What? 5th? Okay, it's on March 5th. If you have not seen the robotics machines that do the surgery and we will have a chance to use them. I have had that opportunity. I think you might find it one of the most fascinating field trips that you might take, but they do need a reservation. So if you would get with my secretary, get with my secretary and make a reservation since she has the specifics. They are going to send a bus. We'll get you out there and get you back. But I think you'll find it pretty fascinating. Okay, let's see. Do we have an agenda? Who got just the 2? Obviously, you're sitting there making the puppy dog happy. So obviously, we are going to go with House Bill 1187s, and Representative Thomas, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam. Test. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm here today to present House Bill 1187. You should have LC number 540311 sitting in front of you right now. I'm here with one of my constituents, Casey Whitworth, who helped draft this bill, and she's been really a great resource through this process. And I know most of you know me, but present a lot of infrastructure technology type legislation. But as Casey is one of my constituents, this was one that she approached me about, and I think it makes sense. So I'd like to begin on page 1. We actually remove the term assistance dog and replace it with the term service dog. And service dog is actually defined in lines 102 through 107, and I'll continue through that at some point, but I just want to let you know that's part of what we're doing. So in several places of code, we clean up the term assistance dog to the new definition service dog. Again, that's pretty much everything from lines straight through to lines 63. Except for, actually, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Line 52, one thing we did was any person who with criminal negligence, because I think it's important that we add that component into this, who who causes death or physical harm to a service dog or renders part of a service dog body useless by seriously disfiguring the service dog, when he or she knows or should know that the dog to be a service dog, shall be punished as a misdemeanor of a high aggravated nature. One of the things that Casey discussed with me, and I'll let her talk a little bit about lines 57 through 63, is, what happens when these service animals, to the people that rely on these service animals to be able to function in daily society. So that we get into a pretty heavy penalty for that, because it's so disruptive to another person's life. And like I said, we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Again, lines 70 through 74. One of the things I found to be really interesting about service animals is they've really come a long way from, what I even knew about service animals, because now service animals can detect if like a veteran is about to really undergo some PTSD or really have some mental health issues, which our code as it's currently written doesn't address those issues. Additionally, there's several other more mentally disorders that service animals can detect, and this allows for those to be considered as service animals as well, the way that we've refined the code. Section 3 talks about activities of daily living, which is important that we define that. We strike lines 89 through 93 that talks about physically disabled persons, because we're trying to move beyond just physically disabled and move into the also folks that may have other mental impairments. The sections 94 through 107. I'd like to talk about 94, which we talk about the opportunity to owner training. And I really like the input of the committee on this. I think there's a lot of back and forth about people being able to train their own service animals. I'm looking for feedback from the committee on that. So I'd just ask if you'd have any comments to please feel free. I'm here for the will of the committee. Lines 112, again, gets into this. You see a recurring theme of physically and mentally now, because it just expands that definition. That continues on. And again, more cleanup language on line 19 for lines 119 through 144. Lines 145 through 148, again, it talks a little bit about such dog is being held on a leash under control, and such dog is wearing a collar. It's just basically, it's just cleanup language here. It takes out the accredited school. And that's one of the things that I think is needs to be noted by the committee. Service dogs in training shall have the same rights and protections in the law as working service dogs. You'll have to kind of explain where that one came from, because I was a little, okay, great. Again, it's more cleanup language in section 5 and again in section 6. And then finally at the end of on line 190, it talks about any individual who deliberately misrepresents himself as a service dog or trainer. There's now that a penalty that's put in for that. And the last page is more cleanup language, again, removing the term guide dog and going with service dog. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, thank you for the bill. As I was reading through it, I just wanted to get a clarity on a question. So in your definition on lines 102, you defined service dog, and then in your last sentence, you talk about emotional support, and then throughout the rest of the bill, you refer to physically or mentally impaired. What is your definition in this bill of mentally impaired, and how does that differ from emotional support?
So to clarify, actually it says such term shall not include a dog that has been trained to do a specific job or task that solely provides comfort, companionship, or emotional support. So it's an excluder, that because to me, I think if I was just to boil it down, what I don't want is to see people carrying their cat around or small dog and petting it because it makes them feel good. Like, that's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to help people that really suffer from day-to-day problems. And, obviously, if you feel like it should go stronger, we might somewhat disagree on that, but I think that, to me, what it is, it's a dog that detects an issue. I'm trying to think of like one, and I think we've got some people that like to speak to the bill that may be able to explain some of the other situations that we're talking about. For example, could you help me out here, Casey? Could you think of something that would be a mental?
So I have PTSD from epilepsy. I was sexually assaulted after a seizure, and now every time I have a seizure, I have PTSD from that. My dog is trained to help me not physically assault somebody, EMTs, medical professional, random stranger helping me after a seizure. She will let me know, hey, this is the plane of existence we're in right now. Don't be afraid. She will tactilely lick my face so I can focus on her. She will lay down on me and apply deep pressure therapy, meaning she will apply all 62 pounds of her body weight on my body, and that will cause me to focus on her. So these are trained tasks that she's been taught to do if I start having those PTSD signs. A dog that is emotional support or there for just comfort has no training in how to help their handler. They're just solely there because their handler wants them there.
I understand the distinction. My point is that from section 4 on, you mentioned physically or mentally impaired, and there's no definition of what does mentally impaired mean.
97, 101 would be.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that.
If you feel like we need further clarification on that, I'd be happy to take any suggestions.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Let me reread it again.
Representative Hutchinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I understand that there's no accreditation for a service animal, right? Like there's no accredited program for training a service animal?
Yes, ma'am. On a federal level, there is no accredited association.
I have to say, I love the bill. I love dogs. I'm a dog person. My whole family people. My dog is my baby. I'm an empty nester, so I got a new dog when my kids left. I love dogs. I am really trying to resist the urge to come and hug your dog right now. I am confused though about the whole training thing. Like, there's nothing so my career outside of this is mental health. And the way I read this, if I train a dog to lick one of my clients' faces when they're depressed, that's oversimplifying what a service animal is, but wouldn't that fly with this language?
It would fly on a federal level as well.
Okay.
Does
'Cause
that
I-
make sense?
It does. I was hoping it was
'Cause
more
there- I mean,
defined at this
The
point.
language we try, sorry to take over. The language we try to portray in this is the same language portrayed on the federal level when it comes to the owner training. If that's what we wanted to be specific on that. Because on a federal level, service dog handlers have that right to owner train. And we wanted to give Georgians that right as well on a state level. So they have these laws covering them as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I've been to Representative Hutchins' house, and she does treat her dogs like babies. But anyway, on line 13, if the intent of this bill is to change the language to be consistent with service dogs, just look at line 13, and it just kind of jumped out at me, and it still says assistance dogs. Is that,
I think that's the current way that the code section is titled. I'd have to lean on my, or what's their council. Can you point me to the line 13?
Just a question that just jumped out on me at me if we're trying to change the language, but if it's cold, then I understand.
That's, we refer to the catch lines as they currently exist. Yeah, that's.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, we have people that want to speak to this. Michael Whitworth. It's almost so.
Oh, it's Nicole Whitworth. That's me.
You could, if you want to go ahead.
I can share my story
Sure.
about why this
I
is so
mean,
important.
Literally, it's so faint, we can, you know. I
The
thought-
pen barely worked. I'm
Okay.
sorry. So, I approached I'm Nicole Whitworth. I approached Representative Thomas with this bill 4 years ago.
Yeah.
4 years ago, right before everything closed down. But, I had a different service dog then. And she was owner trained. And I'll get to that in a minute, but we were out and another dog came up and attacked her. And I had to remove her from service dog work because of that attack. It wasn't oh, let me just jump on your dog, easy attack. No, I had to take her to get vet care. I had to get medical attention. This dog was not a friendly dog. My dog became traumatic, and if I pulled out her service dog gear, she would panic. She would start screaming almost. She was so scared of her service dog gear. And my dog, my Dojo, my current service dog, loves her working gear. She comes running up to me, sits down, and is like, okay, where are we going? Like, how can I help you today? A service dog shouldn't be scared of their vest. It's like putting on a jacket. They love it. But Raven, my shepherd, when I first met Thomas and I were out, and this dog came and attacked us. And because of the way the current laws are written, because my dogs are owner trained, I didn't have a case to build. To be able to support getting another service dog at that time. And to support seeking criminal charges against the person who attacked my service dog, according to the law. And that's when I reached out to Representative Thomas and was like, hey, can we make a change? And I had already did the legwork.
But he told you he was brand new in the legislature and let him get his feet on the
Yeah,
ground
he
first.
did. He
Okay,
did.
good idea.
Yeah, I wasn't ready to take this bill as a brand new legislator, so.
He did, and I let him, and that gave us more opportunity to work on the wording and the phrasing and to make sure it was going to work. I ended up having to give Raven to a family so that she could live her best dog life, and she is now. She's still terrified of children. She's terrified of other dogs. If she sees me to this day, she goes into a panic attack. So I will never be able to see that dog again because I'm another person's dog. And with the changes in this act, it gives people who owner train their service dogs like mine, who follow the law and don't just say, yes, I taught my dog one task. Now I can take it everywhere. And they haven't taught them basic obedience. They haven't taught them how to potty train in public. We need these dogs. Dojo taught me how to go back out into public. After what happened to Raven, I lost contact with the world. I became depressive, suicidal. I lost contact with reality. Because I didn't have that constant reminder of take your medicine, make sure you're getting up in the morning, because those are tasks that I teach my dogs to remind me to do these things. Because with epilepsy, you forget what you ate for breakfast. You forget, did you eat breakfast? So having a constant companion to help you remember, hey, this is going to happen. This needs to help you is helpful. And having the changes to help owner trainers is going to be helpful for not only me, but other handlers in the state as well.
Okay, I'm curious, and even 4 years ago when that happened, you're saying the federal law covered owner-trained dogs?
It did.
And are we, just by saying that owners can train them, we cover it enough? There aren't some specifics in the federal law that says you should do certain things under that part?
We can make sure we investigate that.
Well, I mean, I think you should, so that we don't just have somebody,
Yes, unless I can say that, yes. So
Okay.
we'll make sure
That's
that-
doable. Yes, ma'am.
right, okay. I mean, just if they have specified, so you just don't have somebody coming and teaching their dog one of these things and saying, I'm trying, or two, and I'm owner trained, and,
Yes, ma'am. I understand what you're saying.
okay, if there are any. If not, well,
Yes, ma'am.
we'll go on that, okay? And I can certainly, my dog is not a service dog. But she's certainly my companion, so I'm in the dog lover family, so with a very spoiled corgi that I certainly wouldn't want anything to happen to, and we've just been discussing at one point how they're now being used to if threatened to hurt seniors, animals, are actually hurting them to get seniors to give them their money and stuff. It's becoming a problem across our country, how animals are being used to facilitate elder abuse in this country. So I'd like to do something about that. Okay, I didn't mean to cut you off. Was there anything else you,
No, ma'am.
okay? Thank you for bringing that. Okay, Brandy Paul. Hi, okay, tell us who you,
My name is Brandy Paul. I have been a service dog trainer for, I think, 14 years now. I own and operate Dream Run Dog Training out of Raven County, Georgia. And I wanted to address the redefinition of service animal in this bill. Because as the law is written right now, there are 3 service dogs in this room, but none of them actually count under state law. We count under federal law because under the Americans with Disabilities Act, the definition of a service animal is an animal that has been trained to mitigate a disability in some way. But under the state law, it's limited to guide dogs, hearing alert dogs, and dogs that are assisting with physical issues. My dog is a medical alert dog, so she doesn't count. PTSD dog, they don't count. And the real problem with that is the federal law, it doesn't address harassment of a service animal. Like all it does is give us access to the public. So when our dogs are attacked and harassed, we don't have any kind of case to build. Even though my dog is trained by a professional. Like I have 2 different certifications, but she still doesn't count.
does anybody have a question for the presenters? I mean, that's certainly clear. You know, sometimes we don't get all the attention that congressmen get,
Mhm.
our US senators. But you know, one of the things and advantages we have, they can take 10 years to change a law or update it. We can do it in 1 session or 2 sessions. So we have that definite advantage of, you know, it's one reason I've never wanted to go to Washington. It takes them so long to get anything done. And every year we, you know, somebody can bring us something and we can make those changes that make a difference in people's lives. Now, do you know when they say owner training, anything about that?
Yes, ma'am, I do. So owner trained dogs, they are covered under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And like I said, all it does is give them access to public places. And there's a lot of states like South Carolina, if you're training your own service dog, you are allowed to take that dog into public.
are there any, what I was getting at, are there any specific things that they say you have to do in
No,
that
ma'am.
training?
There's
And
not.
owner trained?
But owner trained or service dogs in training in Georgia have to be out with a trainer working with a program. So what I have seen personally in the service dog community in Georgia is we do have a lot of people who are taking dogs that are not ready to be service dogs. And they're saying, oh, well, my dog knows at least one task, so I'm covered under the ADA. And they're not wrong. The ADA does also say that if a dog is being disruptive, it can be legally removed. But these handlers that are doing this to try to find their loopholes, they know that the businesses are probably going to be too afraid to enforce that. So I feel like if we gave them the actual time they need to be able to train their own dogs, we would see a lot less of that.
Okay, you might want to talk further with the representative about, you know, what we could specifically, is it mainly that they are disruptive in their decorum of an, you know, like they bark when they're at the restaurant, or they
Yes.
get in other people's food, or
Yes,
they
like imagine
potty-
just taking your own pet and just taking it right out right now without any kind of extra training. That's basically what we have.
So we might want to look at that so that owner training is not so onerous that nobody could train their own dog, but that there are some guardrails. Okay.
Right, like I
Nice.
feel like the people that are doing that, using that specific loophole, if they were actually given access to be able to train their own service dog, they would slow down and do a better job.
Okay. I mean, because I think this is one thing Representative Thomas asked for is some guidance on this, is why I'm sort of probing these kind of questions. Representative Al.
Thank you. So just to clarify, not to belabor this point, so this bill aims to apply an enhanced penalty onto harassment or attack or disfigurement of a service animal as defined in the bill. If a non-service dog, I feel like I have to say, I have 2 dogs and 2 cats. Everyone loves dogs here. It's all cool. They all get along. If another animal attacked my non-service dog, what is the current penalty for that? Because I assume that there is some sort of, like if a dog is vicious, aggressive, that there are some guardrails even in the law now in terms of how that animal is treated or how that owner is penalized for having that aggressive animal in public. Is that correct, or am I not understanding how the current setting is with regard to dog attacks?
Are you looking at the law or legal counsel? Not doing other homework right now, are not listening, are you?
May I address that?
Please.
So I think there's actually laws dependent on each county, like animal control laws regarding that. But if we had a statewide uniform law, it would make it easier. And also, I personally feel like it should be a stricter penalty for harassment of a service animal or disfigurement of a service animal.
Right.
Because my dog's not a pet. My dog is a diabetic alert dog. I could literally die without my dog's help. So to have her put on the same level as a pet and get the same penalty to somebody who allows their dog to disfigure my dog versus a pet, I don't feel like that's really doing a whole lot of justice for me.
Yeah, certainly understand that this is enhanced above whatever the baseline is. I just wasn't
Right.
sure what the baseline was.
I think it varies by county in each animal control district.
State law, or is it just individual counties that make up whatever, you know, somebody's regular pet?
I have looked into it before when my dog was attacked and I couldn't find a statewide law.
Not aware of any, but I have.
Because I certainly know for attack on humans, which sometimes we see those at the hospital, that if
Right.
there's an aggressive dog, that there's a whole series of legal, sequelae that are triggered by that
Mhm.
attack. So I was just curious. Thank you. Appreciate
I
that.
don't need to push you, I'm just used to Betsy. who's-
Well, Betsy's been here about 21 years longer
That's
than
what
I
I'm
have.
saying. Pick on you because Betsy is, Betsy would go, oh, just a minute, I'll go to this law. Well, I'll leave word for somebody that'll be here 21 years from now to ask you. If you can do what Betsy does, I won't be
I hope so.
21 years from now. So,
Madam Chair, I may have an answer to the question. Marilee Gober, citizen advocate, years ago litigation attorney. Generally, the law allows one free bite with an aggressive animal. And after that, the owner is on notice that if there's any other issue, the owners will have liability for any harm.
Is that
It could be case law. I'm not sure if there's a statute or not, but I know there's a plethora of case law.
of case law on it? Thank you very much for coming forward. Representative Perkle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On lines 57 through 63, as it relates to the meat of the enhanced penalties, is there provision? Am I on the right? 57 to 63? Is there provision if the service dog flips a switch and becomes aggressive for whatever reason, and you know it's a service dog, and in the means of helping to get the dog under control, you actually harm the dog? Does this place you under a penalty of, so for instance, I was and this is not a service dog, but it's a German Shepherd. That there are some service dogs that are, and certainly not the same training, but this particular dog flipped a switch and became, well, it was worse than that. He was trying to take down all my cows. And the owner couldn't get him under control, and I couldn't get him under control. I had to tap him pretty hard with my truck in order to break the thing that he had done. So if this had been my neighbor's service dog that had gotten away, and in a means of protecting my property or protecting my neighbor or protecting me, I want to make sure that I'm not going to go to jail for 1 to 5 years with a $10,000 fine. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's on. Oh, okay. So first, a service dog shouldn't be trained in protection, because our service dogs don't protect us, like in a malicious sense.
And this was not a protected dog.
Um,
And he'd been around me for years.
but if the dog so you're saying, I want to make sure I understand you correctly. The dog just flipped a switch, like he just did a 180 in his.
He was the aggressor.
There are dogs, as they age, just like human beings, can have like a form, I don't know, they don't think they call it Alzheimer's, but can have actual mental problems and become aggressive.
And
I mean, I
Madam
have to
Chair,
get
I
a vet,
don't
I'm
mean to
not a
make it,
vet, but I have heard and read about this.
and Madam Chair, I don't mean to make it just about this particular one example that, you know, we can
Right.
all have things, but if, for instance, there is a service dog that does something, as you were just saying, that is out of character for the dog, but as a means of as a bystander, protecting you or protecting me or protecting my kids, I would want to make sure that the unintended consequence is not, no, I should not hurt a service dog. I should not, because they're trained and you've got a lot of money and it helps you with your disability. But I want to make sure that the black ink on white paper does not have the unintended consequence of making me a felon for trying to help out in a situation. So
Sure.
that's it. Thank you, ma'am.
If I may, Chairman Perkle, this is a hearing only because we do want to flush this out. I think that's a really valid point. I think it's
Good job.
language that we need to get included in the bill. So thank you for that suggestion.
And I just have one question. We've all talked about our pets and protecting our pets. Are your cows your pets? I'm teasing you, Representative Burkle.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
They're dogs, thanks. Okay, I think I better leave the teasing alone at dinner. Okay, we'll have somebody from PETA in here because don't want us to hate meat. Okay, pardon?
The aggression. So in the federal law, at the Americans with Disabilities Act level, there is a provision that says we are responsible for anything our dogs do. So in that case, if this was my dog, I would be responsible for anything that happened to your cattle or your truck. And there's also another spot where it says any dog who shows any kind of aggressive behavior or even has a history of aggressive behavior cannot legally be a service animal. So maybe we could add something like that into the state law.
Fine. Okay, I think legal counsel has,
Yes, Carolyn, 4/8/21 begins the classification of dangerous dogs. There's a series of statutes that lay out what qualifies a dog as dangerous, but it is along that 1 free bite line where it's not that the bite is free, but it's only after that first bite that a dog becomes labeled dangerous
okay,
and therefore have a series of additional
penalties,
restrictions placed on them. And the
okay. All right, thank you very much. for
Thank
your
you.
things. I think we have one other person that wants to sign in sheet. Okay, Jenny Hill. Okay, and we're missing all the puppies because we can't see them from
Oh.
up here.
Might show myself. I'll show you his backside.
Will he put his paws up on the counter?
He may stand
No.
up. Good afternoon, and I'm going to go ahead and apologize now. These Georgia sinuses have gotten me really good this week. My name is Jenny Hill. I'm the executive director for a national nonprofit called the Wounded Blue. I'm a former police officer. I was injured in the line of duty back in 2011. I now work for the Wounded Blue, and we assist injured and disabled police officers. This is Baron, my service dog. He's actually dually trained in therapy as well. It's very rare, so I don't want to confuse you on that, to be able to have a service dog who is also able to assist. Do you need to move? It's okay. Yeah. Oops. Come here. Oh, you'll be, oh. He loves Dojo as well. Baron. He's like. Okay. Where was I? He also likes to play. So we assist injured officers all over the country. When I just recently, actually this weekend, Nicole, I've been following her and this whole process along the way and been supportive of her. And she just asked me to come along today and assist on the PTSD side. Baron is actually a mobility and PTSD dog. And so I'm here to talk about the PTSD side of it. One of the biggest parts of this for us is we are covered federally on the mental health PTSD side, but we aren't covered in the state. And for what our nonprofit does is we actually partner with other organizations to assist injured officers who are in need of a service dog. But interestingly enough, we aren't covered here in our own state. And of course, Georgia Proud, we want to be able to say, hey, you're covered here if something ever happens. So obviously having a PTSD dog, I do have PTSD. And it's something I talk about all over here in a state, but also nationally. And it's something, if you guys have any questions on, I'll talk about as well. Sorry, I'm losing my voice again. I think that's really all I have. I don't want to keep your time because I know you have other things to talk about as
Any
well.
questions? Okay, so basically I think, Representative Thomas, that especially thank you for your service as an officer in protecting us. I'm sorry that you were wounded. Thank you for talking about the fact that you now need a service dog as we try to make people that have some form of emotional or mental illness, that it's the same as a physical illness and should be seen as that, and helping bring that to the forefront for parity and out of the closet and of shame that some people think surrounds anything to do with anybody that needs emotional help of any way. So I thank you for that. Why don't you go back? And I think you've got good people leading you. You've heard what we answered. I think we need to cover it so that, like Representative Purple says, that, that should something happen to the dog and they attack, that there is that written into our law that in that situation, they would not, go to jail or have a $10,000 fine. And I think that's as many service dogs as we've had shot lately are injured that I read about in the paper. This is a growing problem because it seems like a lot of people that commit crimes have no respect for animals whatsoever. They just see them as getting in their way. And I do know that training one can take a long time. And if you're doing it with a company, it's very expensive, and they're not just readily available on the street to replace when the person has to get a new dog. So why don't you work on it and then bring it back to us a little more perfected? And has this helped any in what you wanted? Here, it's Mike's on. I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. This has been a huge help. I really do appreciate the committee for investing the time in the bill to try and get it where it needs to be. And obviously we'll be having offline conversations to try and get it the rest of the way across the finish line. So thank you
Okay.
very much for your time today.
All right. And, work on and get it as good as you can get it over here. And, we have time to work on it on the Senate if you don't get it
Perfect.
absolutely perfect, but let's do it as good as we can get it
Yes, ma'am.
over here.
Thank you.
We'll have a couple of more meetings if you
Okay. Yeah.
get it that way.
Sounds like
Okay. All right, and we have another hearing only. It's authority on safe places for newborns. And you have the floor, Representative Crow. Sorry that they were just sitting here and went first when I got here, so.
That is fine. I'll put everything back in a minute.
Is this computer on this invoice thing on?
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. This is House Bill 1030, working off of LC 540271. And it is an update to the Safe Place for Newborns Act of 2002. And what it does essentially is it codifies what a newborn safety device is and allows for them within the law. It also defines an ambulance service, as you'll see on line 17 of page 2. It defines a newborn safety device down on line 27. And then the meat of the bill is essentially in starting at line 36 in paragraph 1910A4. That's where it is allowed down in on line 45 on the third page. They can either leave it in the physical custody of an employee, agent, member of the staff in a medical facility, fire station, police station, or ambulance service, as we define it in here, who is on duty, or in a newborn safety device.
If I interrupt you,
Not a bit, ma'am.
do you have a picture of what a newborn safety device happens to be?
I do not have one with me, but I suspect that the person on Zoom with Safe Haven that had brought this
Have you
may
got
have
some?
one. Amy, do you have one? and Amy's got one on her phone. We may can get it sent to somebody
Okay,
to show it.
okay,
But I think the folks from Safe Haven that will be here testifying via Zoom may be able to pull one up on their screen.
okay,
I have been using a poor analogy because I can't think of anything much better, but it's, to me, it reminds me, is reminiscent of a night safety deposit box at the bank. It fits into, it's a box that fits, is cut into the side of the building, the facility. You can access it from the outside. When it's opened, you can place the child in there. Once that door is closed, it is locked, can't be reopened from the outside. And it's equipped and alarmed to notify 911 that there's been a child left in there, and personnel can be to the child within a matter of minutes to take care of the child and arrange for transport of the child to the nearest medical facility. That's also covered further down in paragraph 1910A6. And then over on starting at line 80, and I know I had some discussions, Madam Chair, with the Department of Human Services. We've talked about this bill some. We met this morning. There was some language taken out starting at line 75 about the signage. And I wish Claire was here and had worked with me, the legislative counsel, to help write this. I think that was just removed to allow this to be inserted in, but that may be something we can put back in as we move further with this. But 1910A8, starting at line 74, that's actually where it defines and describes what the newborn safety device, what it is. That's where it's described and defines what it has to be qualified as one. So with that, I'll take any questions if they have it, and there'll be other people much more knowledgeable than I that will also speak on it.
have questions from the committee. Representative Al.
Thank you, Representative Crowe. I have a question, not so much about the mechanism of the child safety device, but what happens afterwards. And my question is, especially if the drop-off is anonymized in some way, what happens with the parental rights of the parent who is dropping off the infant? And what I'm thinking of is, because there is this time limit within 30 days of birth for accessing these devices, and obviously there's a lot that can happen in the first 30 days after birth. You could be having, postpartum depression, mental health crises, poverty, all sorts of things that you can imagine. But that relinquishing the child, I'm wondering if it's a permanent state, or if that would be held against a parent for having put a child in what they might temporarily think is a safer situation.
Well, and it says in here, it's the same as the current Safe Place for Newborns Act. Like now, if somebody places that child in the physical custody of an employee, agent, or member of a medical facility, fire station, it's the same. It would apply the same as that.
And
And those are anonymous as well. They don't have to give any of their information when they place that child into that person's custody. This would just allow them to, and honestly, my hope is, the reason when I was approached about this, and as Representative Thomas said earlier, this is not my usual purview. I don't necessarily deal in health issues as much, but we've passed several laws over the last year that I think or the last few years that I think are fantastic and to protect babies and save babies. This is another step to do that. If you have a pregnancy that goes to term and it's an unwanted pregnancy, this allows for another place to place that baby without a person having to walk up and physically hand their child to somebody, look them in the eye. Even though they can do it anonymously now, they still have to deal with the shame and the guilt and perhaps the sense of judgment, and they might avoid that. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but if it asks about what the penalty is for it, or if there is a penalty, I'll probably have to defer to legislative counsel, because it would be the same as whatever it is otherwise. But I believe as long as they do it within 30 days of the child being born, there is no penalty on the parent.
So my question was actually, let's say a parent drops off their newborn
Mhm.
because they're in crisis in that moment, or thinking that's a better option, and then they change their mind. what is the right of the parent at that point? What are the
I-
parental rights? Have they been relinquished? Is it held against them in some way that they took this action that they might have thought was on the best interest of the child and they changed their mind? What happens afterwards if they decide?
I'm
to
sorry,
do it?
I don't know the answer to that. It would be whatever's currently in code. This doesn't affect that, but I don't know the answer to that.
Which is the department will go to the court and ask for custody of the child. And they ask for the child to be placed in foster care. And they start looking for a permanent home for that infant if they've been, they don't have the parents' information or any way to trace them. So basically that's,
And if the parent comes back and says, I changed my mind? And the rights will not be, there's nothing relinquishing parental rights in this piece of
No.
legislation?
No, that would have to go through the court process for the parental rights to be relinquished.
My guess would be that it would go through the regular defects process. So the child enters foster care, they have a adjudication hearing, they have a probable cause hearing, adjudication, they go through the whole process. So it could be years. So if the mom decides 6 months from now, I changed my mind, as long as the rights haven't terminated, they have to entertain it.
Okay. And the reason I ask that is there's instances in other states where people have accessed these drop boxes and literally like hours later, they're like, I don't want to do that anymore. And then it becomes a
can do that.
very onerous process for them to get the child back. In other states, I'm not sure what
It
their.
probably will be, because you still have to, I mean, the child at that point is in foster care and you have to go through the process to get them back, but it's doable.
so I had some information. I mean, we passed the Safe Place for Newborns in 2003. And DFACS, I hate that word. Okay, the state has taken custody of 89 newborns. Infants in that 30-day since 2003 in that specific act. They do go through the juvenile judge immediately and start to turn to take the one. Okay, Representative Hutch, are you through? Representative, do you have another one? Representative Hutchinson?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My issue is not necessarily with the bill, but it's been my experience working in this field that the people who actually drop their babies off have no idea this even exists.
Mhm.
So it still happens, but I think this could be more helpful if we had more education in early years, like minimum high school. Even though it might not happen in high school, if it happens when they're 25, they could remember, oh, I remember this in high school, and this is an option. But I think right now, in general, for the people who really, really need this, they don't have enough information to make this decision and to know where to go. Because I remember when this passed, and they were dropping teenagers off at Quick Trip. Because at first, they didn't specify age. So we were having teenagers dropped off at Quick Trip and entering DFACS custody. Yeah. I think so.
I thought it was called the Safe Place for Newborns Act.
It was safe, it was just safe haven at
And
first, I
or
think.
something. I think people
Yeah.
didn't get the idea. Okay. You worked with defects at the time.
I
when
was
we
picking
did-
all
we
those kids
passed the
up.
laws. Okay.
But I would love to see this pass and more education out there, particularly in public high schools. I would even do it in middle school, really, just to give everybody the option to know that this is an option. Because right now, I don't think, and most people know that this is an option.
Well, how many states have passed? And I mean, who brought this for us? Who brought it to you, or is it a?
Amy Anderson, who's here, she's an advocate that has gotten connected with Safe Haven baby boxes, and that's the person that's on Zoom that'll be talking about it. They are a nonprofit, and that's one of the things that they do, to your point, is when one of these is installed somewhere, when the law gets passed and one's installed somewhere, they do a lot of marketing around that. They raise funds and really try to get the word out about it as an alternate, because you're right there. And most folks know that our youngest two children are adopted. And the reason we got them was because a family member was keeping them for another family member who had disappeared, was having issues. They were 9 months old, 23 months old. The only reason we found out was because he called my wife, who used to be a firefighter, and said, can I go drop them off at the fire station? And they were 9 months and 23 months old. So there's a lot of non-education out there about it, but, yeah, and to your point, it does take a while. The parental rights are not terminated until our adoption was fully finalized and signed by a Superior Court judge. Those parental rights have not been terminated. There was always an option for the parents to come back and try to regain custody of the kids. So, just them dropping the child off or not now, there probably would be questions about, what their ability to care for the children if they went to this step, but the parental rights would not be terminated just by dropping them off.
Okay, Representative Coe, do you mind if Ms. Adams comes up? If she brought it to you or
I-
whoever it
She can
is
go wherever she wants to.
and
so-
come up here?
Yep.
If you want to come around, no, if you want to come up to the
Yeah.
and sit by, because I think you might have some questions and I got some specific questions about the box. I mean, how many other states are doing anything like this? I'm getting,
Currently, these boxes are legal in 20 states. They are active in 15 states.
okay. And the other ones where they were legal, they just never got them
They
set
just
up.
haven't gotten there's a, number one, there's a time lag between when the governor signs the bill and when it becomes, and when they are actually able to. And then you have to have the cooperation of your municipality, of your fire department, of your hospital, whomever. And even though I personally think it's a wonderful idea, the whole world doesn't necessarily think that. And so that's why there are some states that are out there that are just not there yet.
Okay. Representative Lott, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I do have a question and then a point to follow, but so the question is, and this is actually for you, and I'm glad you're speaking to us. Thank you. But what is the situation if it's a fire station? Oftentimes everyone leaves at the same time.
Okay.
So could you just explain how, I get if it's a hospital, there would be more regular staff? But
Absolutely. And the reality is there are more of these, and there are 203 of these in place in the United States currently. 203 boxes that are in place. Most of them are in fire stations as opposed to hospitals. Because of the foot traffic at hospitals, there's more possibility that the parent would be seen. So a lot of people choose to use a fire station. Yes, sometimes firemen are out on a call. On the boxes, there are 3 alarms. There's an alarm that alerts that the door has been opened on the outside. It just lets them know somebody opened the door, but it doesn't alert, hey, 911, come get us. After the baby is placed inside of the box, there's a beam it's a laser beam that goes through. The laser beam, okay, then there's a second alarm that says, hey, the baby's here. And then after the door shuts and locks from the outside, it alerts 911 that the door's shut. And so then in the event that there's not a fireman inside of that house at that moment, 911 dispatches, just like there would be if your fire department caught on fire when the firemen were out. 911 will then dispatch the closest available help to that department. The company that has been doing these requires that they be tested every week, and they actually have to be physically looked at and logged twice a day, every day, to make sure that alarm is working, so that accidents don't happen.
And so now you lead me to a new question. This is one of those, when the more you talk, the more I
So
have
that's
concerns.
okay. I'm good.
So what is the cost associated with that testing and with these boxes
Okay.
as they're one individual box?
Right.
And yes,
Right.
where is
Okay.
it going?
I
Where
was
is the
gonna say,
money going?
let's-
Who's paying?
Right. These are they come as a program and it's a lease. And the money is raised through donations. It is not raised by, we don't take money, federal money, we don't take state money to do it. They want money raised from the area that's putting in the boxes. The lease is $15,000, period. There's a $500 yearly maintenance fee that is any upgrades in technology, any upgrades in stuff, if you need new heaters in the boxes, if there's new technology with the new laser beams in it. As far as the alarm system, they can either go into an existing alarm system that is already in place at the firehouse, or if it requires one, then there is the charge of the alarm system each month.
And then for the representative, this is the most difficult question I'm going to have in my career. On line 41,
Okay.
the last word is there. And I do believe it should be they are, not THERE. Which is not your grammatical error, but
is not.
apparently that was in existing code.
That apparently was an existing code, but I feel terrible that I
Look,
did
that
not
was a
catch
perfect
that.
reference.
But that should be, that actually probably should be two words.
Yes,
They are,
they are.
rather than a contraction in law.
Very
I don't
good.
think we like contractions in law, so thank you.
Okay, so testing them twice a day would fall at the, or mainly in fire station would be fall on the firemen to test them and make sure. And, but the maintenance would be $500 a year and would be done by the company after you pay the 15,000.
The $500 is a yearly fee. It includes if that machine breaks, if the latch falls off the door, if somebody comes and puts a hammer through it, then the company that installs it, that $500 covers it. If they have to come back 17 times, then they take care of that box because it is a lease. It is not a purchase. It belongs to them. They take care of it.
I'm gonna get like Representative Watt. That brought up another question. Okay. Can somebody actually put a hammer through the front part of it and get the child out?
You know what?
Like
I'm
an
gonna
irate
defer to the
dad or?
people on Zoom on that. I would assume that that's actually not true. That was just my mouth spouting off, but we would have to ask the people from there.
Okay, or whatever's ever happened.
Right.
I mean, I can see that some
But-
mother or either
you know,
married or
on-
not married
Right.
decides to give the baby away and that
Right. But on that, to that effect, the average time that an infant is inside of one of the safety devices from the time that the mother opens the door to the time that the firefighter or hospital personnel retrieves it is less than 5 minutes. So somebody's gonna have to know the baby's in there, find a hammer and go put a hammer through it. I'm not saying it's not doable, anything's doable, but that would be relatively unrealistic in my view.
okay. Representative Perkle.
So thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions. One as to the anonymity. So I understand right now, a child can be delivered to a fire station, medical facility, et cetera, and we're adding ambulance service to this, and may or may not leave their name. That is up to the person delivering the child. One concern I have is your, so if someone hands a child to someone, then I understand it's this policy question. They have a description of the mother, and in this case, they don't. And this might be an answer that Representative Hutchinson knows off the top of her head. But at some point there was a male person involved in this child becoming, and if we add additional anonymity, because then you absolutely have no idea who. And I would think to Representative Owl's comments that if you wanted to undo what you've done, that makes it even a little bit more hard. And I think it should be hard. It should be onerous. It should be, if I give my child up and I say it should be onerous, it should be hard. There's some other issues to go. So I am concerned about anonymity. And secondly, and I'm not a lawyer, on line 80, where it says shall be authorized. And you had made comment that in certain states, of the 15 or 20 or whatever you said that they're legal in, are they illegal? Because I can't imagine in code, and I could be completely wrong, that we don't have that medical facility, police station, ambulance service shall be authorized to purchase a defibrillator. That is kind of part and parcel of what they do. Is it necessary that we authorize? One is the shall be authorized. And there again, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know if that's, but if there's someone that says, say that works for me, and I say, you are authorized to go buy a whatever. Well, I kind of expect them to do it. You shall be authorized to go buy a plow. Then I expect them to go do it. Is this shall, I know there's a difference between a shall and a may. One is if we need this part in the bill. And secondly, if we do, and you say shall, does that mean that the ambulance service has got to do it? We authorize you to do it, so by George, you're gonna do it.
Well, to answer the second part first, I don't think the shall means they have to. They shall be authorized. I don't think that means they must do it. I think if it was something they had to do, it would be clearer language that they must. And I think we had the discussion early on about this, whether or not we needed to change the law here. Our law specifically says in the physical custody of an employee, agent, or member. So yes, we would have to allow them under our law in order for the parents to have the protection under the Safe Place for Babies Act. So in order to comply with this code, we'd have to change it to allow that for them to do it without penalty, to incentivize them. And also to the point about the anonymity, I think there have been some places, and I remember some discussions about there may be some monitoring there as well. Some places may have cameras. I mean, it doesn't say you can't have cameras, but
If, with the boxes as they are, then there are no cameras allowed. It is anonymous. As
only
opposed-
but
Right.
outside the
I mean,
building,
if you have one at
outside
out of front of the fire station, the desire is for it to be anonymous. And one of the reasons is that if you as a parent, as you as a new mom, a new dad, are in crisis and you have decided you absolutely cannot take care of this child, that is a gut wrenching, absolutely to the to the center of your soul, that you have to now do something with this baby that you are entrusted with. And so if you have the option of, I have to go look somebody in the face and say, you can do this better than me, have at it. Or you can say, I can put it in this nice, safe, warm place. And I know that within 3 minutes, a fireman on the other side is going to pick it up. Then your choice is, in my opinion, pretty easy. If you take away the choice and say, I'm going to have to go look you in the face and say, you can do this better than me, you know, there are a lot of other options that I can choose, none of which are pleasant. And I think that's my biggest issue with the whole issue of anonymity, is that if the baby is within the days, if the baby is not been harmed, so that this is not, it would be illegal for me to take a 45-day-old baby that I had beat up and put it in a box. That's illegal. It doesn't matter under what reason I would do that. It's illegal. But if it's within the guidelines that say I could walk up and hand it to a firefighter, then I should be able to do that. And if I don't have to answer any questions to the firefighter, why do you need to know what I look like? I mean,
Organization or the one that you work with is in favor of it. Do you have any opposition to doing these?
let me back up. I don't work with them.
Oh.
I just spent a lot of time learning about this because the situation that came up that made me interested in this, I got very interested in it. So I do not work for them. I'm a pharmacist by trade. I don't do this. So there's that. Yes, there is opposition. Some people get confused about the fact that these babies are already here. And so some people want to make this about things that it's not. These babies are already born. Some people want to make this abortion issue. and it's not an abortion issue.
How would you make it an abortion issue? Do they think they should have been aborted?
I don't know, but that's the argument that people want to have.
Okay.
I think that some of those that they oppose this because they wouldn't have the need for this if there was a choice that they could have made to not carry on the pregnancy. You know, and I have very strong feelings about that, but that's
Okay.
not what we're here talking about today. This is simply for those babies that are born, that may otherwise be left, you know, in
In the
woods
woods in the
or a
cold. We
dumpster.
had a case
you
like
know,
that a few years ago.
And if, you know, there's no expense to the state. There's no cost. All we are doing is making this an option under the law for a local entity to do it. And the reason we added ambulance service, some people had questions about that, and I'm glad that Representative Seaball is here because
Why? Did
that's-
you transport these babies?
You call, we transport. So yes.
But there are a lot, especially in the metro Atlanta area, there are a lot of ambulance services that are standalone. Like his ambulance service is a standalone ambulance service that you may have a separate fire and EMS service. And so that's why ambulance service was left in here, because if I had a choice between going to an ambulance service or a fire station that did not run ALS or BLS trucks, I would go to the ambulance service if I needed, you know, a paramedic. So that would be better. That's why it was included.
Representative Seabaugh, y'all would get a call that somebody says, I'm gonna drop a baby off on the corner and y'all would pick it up, or what happened?
Well,
Reality.
reality is they're dropping the child off at a fire station, and the
Oh.
fire station will call us and we'll transport the child.
To the hospital.
Yeah.
This would just allow for them to be dropped off with them rather than at the fire station, them having to go get them. Or for one of these boxes to be installed in that
Okay.
location.
Well, okay, all right, we're getting the list. Representative Hutchinson.
I just wanted to answer the question about the DFACS process. So if this baby's dropped off, then the baby enters foster care immediately because they have to. And then the whole process starts just like any other foster care case. So in this case, if there is no parent, then the child goes to a legal risk foster home. And that's a foster home that has said, I'm willing to take a baby, even though I know this baby may go back to the mom. I'm taking that risk to take this baby and attach to it, even though I know it's not settled.
Meaning that it would go to DFACS
Mhm.
and they would try to give that baby to a family that was wanting an
Correct.
infant.
Right.
And that they would try to pick a home that would match it, that could possibly be its permanent home.
Right.
They would try to make that match.
And if mom never comes back or if dad never comes back, then it works out, then that family will adopt that baby. If mom comes back or grandma comes back or any other family member, they have to stop the process and do a safety case plan and go to court and have that case plan court ordered and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it just plays out like a regular DFACS case. But if mom never comes back, then the anonymity is maintained.
Okay, Representative Hilton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just I'm going to run through a couple quick questions. How many companies offer these boxes? I just want to make sure there's not just one.
As far as I know, in the country right now, there's one. I don't know that there's more than one.
Okay. How many states offer this? I think y'all mentioned, right?
Currently, it's law in 20 states. 15
20.
states have them.
Do you keep track? How many children is that?
42 children since 2017.
So the volume is all not that high then.
No, the volume's not that high. Thankfully, the volume's not that high.
And our state, you weren't here, we've had 89 dropped off at fire stations or wherever since 17. Just with what we have now, where they
There-
walk in and give them to them or.
And there've been 14 cases in Georgia since 17 of infants found either, I think, I have it somewhere. There were 14 in Georgia, 4 were found alive and 10 were found deceased. And those are the ones that we know about.
Wow.
That's according to
That they didn't
local
take.
news.
Last question. The box, it says, say I'm a teenager, right? And I'm wanting to cause trouble and maybe I throw a rock in the box and I don't want these false alarms of police showing up. There's nothing in the box. Is there anything to protect against that?
The alarm's gonna go off. If the box opens, the alarm's gonna go off. If the alarm goes off, the firefighter is gonna respond. So, but now are the police and the ambulance and all that gonna respond? No, the firefighter's gonna open it up and say, this is a rock. I don't, and they're gonna cancel EMS.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Representative, Sebo.
I think you answered my question. One of my concerns is the anonymity. I mean, how do they identify who this child is when it goes to foster care?
Unless mom comes back, there's no way. There's no way to identify.
This baby doe.
Mm-hmm.
So is that the way it is now?
Yes.
Sad.
Sad to have the situation in general. But if you think about it, if you identify the mom, let's say this is, I made a mistake. I'm too young to have this baby. I don't have the resources to have this baby. I'm going to make that gut-wrenching decision. And then 10 years from now, that person is married and in a better situation and they have a baby. You don't want DFACS to say, oh, remember 10 years ago when you did this? Let's talk about it. Because then why do it?
Look at it from like the medical history and those kind of things. Even these kids that get adopted, I mean, they have no medical history.
No, they don't. But if the parents are involved in this process and it's not this situation, there is an effort. I'm not saying it's done all the time, but it's in policy that there's a very long document that the caseworker or whoever's working with this case is supposed to fill out that gives all the medical history, like what grandparents and great-grandparents look like, their eye color, skin color, what they did for a living. Does that happen all the time? No. Is it in policy? Yes.
Yeah, so this bill is, I mean, you're just authorizing these boxes to be used for this purpose. It doesn't require a fire department to put these boxes in their stations or an ambulance service or anything like that. But if they want to, they can. Is that correct?
Correct.
But, okay, but this corporation or this group, they raised the $15,000.
No, like me.
No, not,
No.
no, you
like-
said you didn't work for them, but the,
Right.
whoever
That's what I'm
this-
saying is
what's
that,
it
no, they
called?
do not, I'm sorry.
Safe Haven.
Right.
So she would be Safe Haven. They have webinars and meetings and things, and people who are interested find them online. She's done that. And so Amy would work in her community to try to raise funds. To do a fundraiser-
you would raise
to
funds
raise
out of your
funds to do it.
community.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
So Safe Haven then doesn't have anything to do with it. They just get the word out that they're available or they're selling the boxes.
Right. So Safe Haven, yes, gets the word out. That Safe Haven is also in charge of the maintenance of, making sure that that box is in working order. But they have a hotline that's a 24/7 hotline that, the number's published, it's on the outside of the boxes, it's on their website, it's available. They have billboards in some states that say, call, so that they actually can talk to someone who's an authorized, I don't want to speak too far into that, but they have a hotline a mom can call and they can go over options with the mom. Here, you can try and do this. You can call this family member. You can go to this place to surrender this baby. You can work on an adoption plan. You can do these things. So they have a hotline. So that's one of the ways that they get out. They have educational things. Their videos are all over TikTok and YouTube and wherever you can. But yes, they work to get the information out that the box is actually available.
And they are online.
Okay, they're online. I guess we should ask them, okay, I'm gonna get in trouble. DFACS is not one of the departments that I'm the fondest of. Because it's overworked. They try to do the best. So if they call that hotline, if somebody called that hotline, and they were like me and they don't want to go into the system, maybe they knew somebody that put a baby in, they didn't like what happened. Would those people tell them that there are other places they can take the bag, like if there's a Catholic hospital, you know, or a Catholic group that does it, or a private agency, would they tell them that there are options or something like that? Because rather than, because if they go in those boxes, they're going into state,
Right,
they're
right,
going into
correct.
the state system.
The representative from Safe Haven is on virtual.
Okay.
She has been manning that hotline for 6 years. She can answer that question. I cannot answer that question.
Okay, can we, Representative Al, you want to go ahead and ask your question, or ask it of the people online?
Well, I do want to make one
Point,
very
okay.
quick question. Just to an earlier point as to why this conversation is often lumped into a larger conversation about abortion rights.
Mhm.
The reason is because in the Dobbs decision, Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett specifically referenced these drop boxes as a justification for, I'm just explaining why these conversations happening, as justification for why abortion care is no longer necessary. Right? So that's why those conversations
Thank
go
you for
together.
that clarification.
Obviously, we understand that the social and health and financial toll of being pregnant is separate from the social and medical and financial toll of raising a child, right? So those are two separate things, but that's why. So I just want to explain that for the committee as we're talking about it.
Thank
The
you.
second question is with, again, I think a lot of people have questions and concerns about the anonymity of the Dropbox. And I understand why that is. That's good to have sort of like a more frictionless way for people to put their babies in a safer place if they don't feel that they can take care of them. That's totally fair. What I worry about is, again, the situation of, let's say an infant is dropped off in an unstable home where maybe another family member has access to the child. Let's say the parents don't get along or whatever you can imagine in an unstable home, that someone could actually take the baby, anonymously put them in this box, the box locks immediately. And then this triggers this series of events where maybe the primary parent didn't want this to happen. And, you know, it's anonymous. So to Representative Hutchinson's point, there's really no way for them to tie the identity of the baby to the parent who may not have even incurred this, you know, series of events that I
And-
worry about making it too frictionless is the
And I
problem.
may be overstepping, I may misspeak, but if I were in a unstable situation and I came home and my baby wasn't there, I'm gonna be raising the roof. And so it's gonna be like, oh, wait, there was a baby that was put over here on this day and it was female and it was white. And there's a white mama standing here screaming, saying her baby went missing on that day. That's gonna be pretty easy for me to go back and try and then DNA or whatever other test or 15 pictures of the baby on my phone or something are gonna help DFACS to quickly resolve that problem, I would assume. I mean, that's.
If you're in a small enough town and you hadn't been carried 100 and something, I mean, I don't know, miles away.
Which there's nothing really that would prevent them from doing that now though and handing
Yeah,
it to them
no, I
because they don't have to give any information. So I think that's, you know, we could hypothesize all
Right.
sorts of things that could happen. I think for me, when this first got mentioned to me, it was simply,
Ah.
this is the same as handing it to somebody without having to hand it to somebody. And that was the biggest draw for me is it just, you know, if one person uses the box to avoid that scorn or whatever they feel like they would get by handing it to somebody, then, you know, I think it makes sense for us to do it.
I understand. I mean, obviously you could just leave a baby on the side of the road and that's same thing.
Yeah.
However, what this does is it may be legitimizing and formalizing a frictionless process that maybe shouldn't be quite so frictionless. That's my only point.
Okay, we have lots of, Representative Hutchinson, I want you to be the last question, then we need to hear from the people that they make the boxes, they, okay. And then we have lots of people that want to testify, and I want to be sure and get to people that have come. Okay,
I just wanted to answer Representative Al's question.
you
So
got her on.
as parents, legally, we're responsible for taking care of our kids. If your child's in foster care, that means you've neglected your kids. If I picked someone who was not stable to put my child in, I've neglected my child because you put them in a situation that wasn't safe and they would have ended up in foster care anyway. Because that would be, I mean, if I left mine with my cousin who I know is a crazy alcoholic, then the child deserved to be in foster care anyway. Yeah, we will.
Let's hear from the company. If you're on the line, would you come on and tell us who you are? Are they on?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes?
All right, good. I am Pam Stenzel. I am actually the
Oops.
former board chair of Safe Haven Baby Boxes, as well as the hotline director. I answer the hotline. I did prepare a 3-minute testimony for this hearing, which I think will benefit you if I can give that first, and then I am perfectly able to answer most of the questions if they don't involve too much engineering or math that you have. So if Madam Chair, if you will let me give testimony first, we can then take questions from that. Does that work? All right.
Okay, go ahead.
Is anyone hearing me or?
Yes, we are hearing you.
Okay. So thank you, Madam Chair and committee members, for the opportunity to speak in support of House Bill 1030. My name is Pamela Stenzel. I'm a resident of Tampa, Florida. I'm a psychologist and have spent over 30 years counseling women experiencing unintended pregnancies across the country. I also currently answer the 24-hour National Safe Haven Crisis Line operated by the National Safe Haven Action Coalition. My experience with parents in crisis has informed me that these parents are seeking every option available. They are willing to weigh the consequences and possible outcomes and will choose the option that is best for them. Utilizing the safe haven law is most often a last resort option when every other option available to them is too difficult. Parents who surrender their newborn want what is best for their baby and want their baby to be safe. House Bill 1030 provides positive changes to Georgia's surrendered newborn legislation, creating more opportunities for surrendering parents. In light of the incidence of illegal and unsafe abandonment in the state of Georgia, with over 14 babies being illegally and often fatally abandoned in recent years, it is clear that changes are necessary, and this bill will provide for the additional option of complete anonymity for these parents. Existing legislation may help certain parents who are willing to walk into a safe haven location, but it does not solve the problem of anonymity. To be clear, confidentiality is not anonymity. One parent I counseled with on the phone delivered her baby at 2 a.m. in a very rural area in her state. She called the hotline wanting to utilize the safe haven baby box, but none was available within a reasonable distance. She finally agreed to call 911 and have first responders come to her. I later learned that she was so afraid of being identified that she walked with her newborn to a Walmart parking lot. She surrendered to first responders there, and to her horror, one of the firefighters who showed up on scene was a former high school classmate of hers. If any of you have ever lived in a small town, you will completely understand her desire for anonymity. This bill broadens the scope of Georgia's law to include the most effective tool in ending infant abandonment, an infant safety device installed in fire stations and hospitals. 20 states have enacted laws permitting the use of an infant safety device as a legal form of surrender. 8 more states have introduced legislation to do so this year, including South Carolina, Nebraska, Colorado, Minnesota, and New Hampshire. As of today, there are 205 baby boxes in 16 states, and 41 infants have been safely, legally, and anonymously surrendered in a baby box since 2017, when the first box was installed in a fire station in Woodburn, Indiana. Parents in crisis need to have every option available to them that does not involve the death of their newborn. We offer resources to these parents if they need help to choose to parent their baby. We offer help for them to choose an adoption plan if that is what's best for them. We also help them to surrender face-to-face to a safe haven location. The baby box will make one more option available to them, and hopefully having this option will keep them from making a horrible decision to abandon their baby in an unsafe place. Thank you for your careful consideration of this bill, which will give parents in crisis in Georgia every available option to do the right thing and keep their babies safe.
Okay, thank you very much. You may have a burning question. I'm sure you're staying with us. I wanted to let the parents, or people, I don't know that they're parents, but the people who have signed up to come forward on this one. Okay, this has to, Corey Lawrence. And if you're with a corporation or somebody, tell us what that is.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes,
My
wait a
name
minute.
is Corey Lawrence from Citizen Impact. And actually, I will help speed things along with the testimony because two organizations that did sign up there had to go to another meeting. So Mike Griffin with the Georgia Baptist Mission Board and Taylor Hawkins with Frontline Policy both asked me to pass along their recommendations for this committee to pass it, to approve this bill. Citizen Impact is a network of churches and Christian schools all across the state of Georgia advocating especially on pro-life issues, and safety of newborns is a big, very, very important. So bottom line, thank you for bringing this bill forward, and we encourage the passage of it, and thank the bill sponsor and those who have testified before me.
Okay, and you were just pushing it because you want newborns to be safe. I mean, you don't have a program or anything or
No, ma'am.
take in.
No, ma'am,
Okay,
we just
pregnant-
want
you don't
another
take it-
avenue for
in-
newborns. to be-
Okay, y'all don't take any programs for pregnant women to help them during the pregnancy or anything like that?
No, ma'am, not us. We're just affiliated with different groups that do.
Okay, thank you very much
ma'am.
for coming. Amin? Amy, oh no, she's gone. Who is this? Carlisha Garrett?
She's with Children's Healthcare. Is she
Mhm.
here or is she?
She leave?
Virtual. I think she's on virtual.
Oh, okay, huh?
She's still on, she's just not.
Okay. She go?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, now. See a lovely picture of you.
Oh, I'm actually Rashawn. I'll be talking for Carlisha. We work together at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, and she had to jump off to another meeting. We are both pediatric nurses at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, and having worked in the ED in certain areas of children's, we have been working on a proposal with our hospital to implement a safe haven baby locks at Children's. I myself work in urgent care, and most recently, we had a 17-year-old come in who said she didn't know she was pregnant, and she delivered a baby in the bathroom. And she was too scared to tell us, so she left the baby in the sink and went and got her mom. By the time they came and got us, it was too late. So we know that this happens. I've had babies handed to me in the ED and in urgent care, and we know that this is really, really needed because the teenagers are scared. Our patients are scared. We have an adolescent clinic. We treat a lot of teenagers there, and they're scared. So we just want this bill to be considered because we know it hits home for us. We experience it firsthand, and we really, really need it here. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being on and for what you do and taking care of patients and working with young people and especially mothers like this. Are there questions from the? No, not for you. Okay. All right. Huh? Oh, that's okay. That's everybody. Okay. Questions more for?
Yeah, is it okay? Thank you, Madam Chair. I really don't have a question. I just do not want this conversation to go without saying that I think we have gotten to a place where we forget about fathers. And so obviously I am in support of this bill, and anything that we can do to protect babies is where we want to be. But we forget to mention that a lot. And if it had it my way, the box would say, does dad know? You know, and dad's parents, and this is, and so again, this is a bit of a soapbox statement to say, this is sad, it is necessary, but I could not let this whole thing happen without saying that there are dads that want children. There are dads, parents that would love to be grandparents, and without, we have gone through the abortion conversation without ever saying there's someone else involved in this. And I didn't want to let this conversation slip by without that being said.
Okay.
Thank,
Other questions? Or go
I
ahead.
was just going to respond. I want to thank you. I agree with you completely. I think they need to be involved throughout the entire process. This is often too much of a one-sided conversation about and I understand the mother's carrying the child, but, the father is also, it takes both parties to create that child, with, depending on your beliefs, maybe some other help. But, that's a conversation we need to have. And this doesn't fix that. And I hate that it doesn't. But like you said, this is an option. And if we can if there's one baby that doesn't get left in a sink too late, then I think that it will have been worth it. But I did want to just hopefully make you feel somewhat better. I reread after we were talking, and I think the THERE is correct at the end of line 41, because it's talking about a member of the staff of a medical facility, fire station, police station, or ambulance service who is on duty, whether they're at the fire station, police station, hospital, whether they're in a paid or volunteer position, not whether they are in a volunteer, whether they're there in that. Correct. So I think all is well with line 41.
Okay, which one of you was or were you both English majors in school?
I was a finance major, but
Okay. And Jody went to nursing school like I did. So Jody, you were not an English major somewhere, were you? Are there other questions for the representative or? Okay, thank you. You asked for this hearing. You can get together with me and see what, transpires before that. I want to thank the committee for hanging in here. The ones we almost had a full quorum the whole time. And now that we've reduced it to 8 instead of 11. So I thank everybody for coming and listening, and we're adjourned. I got you before you sat down.